man.
Trying to decide if I should send out another announcement and try to get as many people as I can.
I would. Yeah. But I also add everybody.
So. Yeah, it's not that big a
deal. I add everybody when I want to boom sauce Laz, so
True facts. For some reason, if you type @noted, it wants to tag Horwath too. It just knows. J-Roy hasn't even tagged him once.
We're not trying to learn.
All right, HotMic's telling me we got 30 seconds, so we got 30 seconds.
Let's go!
The best thing about doing this with the same people is that I don't have to move anyone's video feed inputs or anything. It keeps the NDIs. Oh, my computer says it's 7. All right, we're going.
Let's ride.
Let's ride. We're live.
We are live.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good.
Or morning.
Evening, morning, wherever you're at. Good Thanksgiving week. Some.
Unless you're not. In which case, good November.
Good November. Yeah, I think Canadian Thanksgiving already happened, so no happy Thanksgiving to you, John.
Yeah, it did. I always forget when it is, though.
John, happy November 23rd.
I have to ask John.
So,
I feel like it's October.
It does. It still does. It'll be crazy when all of a sudden it's like Christmas everything right after Thanksgiving. That's all gonna hit.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know about y'all, but we had snow yesterday for the first time, so had about 3 inches of snow.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
it's about time for that.
There
you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get right into the baseball. So please go ahead and if you have any questions, drop them in chat. We are going to start off with one question, which is, if you had to bet on one player getting traded this offseason, who would it be? I'm going to take the easy answer so that, but right as Cop is saying it, I'm going to say you can't say Lindor because that's the one that everyone is expecting.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
And we discussed a Lindor trade last time as well.
Yeah. Nothing's going to change on that front. Definitely. Except still go through. That's a very good question.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Personally, I know a lot of Cubs names are out there. I'm not super comfortable saying that any one of them will get traded necessarily. Although, as Jed Hoyer gets settled into being the president of baseball operations, which I guess that's something to mention too, the whole Theo Epstein deal, if we get a chance. But as Jed Hoyer gets settled in, there seems to be more and more indication that we are definitely going to get some turnover on that front. So you could very well say, yeah, it'll be a Cub. And I believe the popular answer there is Chris Bryant.
Chris Bryant would be the one, yeah. Arenado.
Yeah, perhaps.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Or Story. Both. I feel like if one goes, they both go. Honestly,
That's fair.
I think the smart play in Colorado is for sure. Both of them, because they're at high value, and there's no future there with this current roster or anything coming up. I don't know if there's anyone I'm very safe on. I would be shocked, however, if Lance Lynn isn't moved.
True. I'd agree with that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It was floored when they didn't trade him at the deadline. We did a HotMic stream. I think it was me, Peter, and Christian. I think someone else may have been on it. I don't 100% remember. And we were very, very surprised on trade deadline day when he was passed. It was a huge mistake a la Mike Minor the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Just not the highest value possible. But I think that Lynn is for sure I'd be shocked if he's not moved. I mean, Texas is a rebuilding team, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with.
I don't know, man. I really like the Lance Lynn one though. That's probably. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to top that.
Yeah,
answer.
I mean it's probably it's gonna have to come from a team most likely that's either kind of on the way down or, like the Rangers are really a team that's a sell candidate more so than a lot of others, and Lance Lynn's their guy. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think again like Lindor is absolutely buzzed.
Lindor's
because I would be shocked if he's not moved with all the rumors going around him.
Speaking of, what a deal that Lance Lynn contract ended up being. I know I was critical of it at the time. It was like 3 years, 30 million, 30-year contract. It's Bobby Bonilla
deal,
type beat. No, a 3-year, 30 million. I was like, there's no way Lance Lynn is still worth, 10 million a year. Well, he's been worth way more. But yeah.
And actually, in our chat, Quinn says Blake Snell.
True.
That's probably not a bad answer. That report dropped today that apparently the Rays are open to moving him, and after the. I'm not an insider. I don't know, but I would imagine that after the World Series, him getting pulled, that there might be some conflict, may we say, inside that clubhouse. So that'll be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Callie says Max Scherzer. It's a possibility. I don't know. The Nats would have to decide that they're definitely not going for it next year. I think if you want to win next year, you don't trade away Max Scherzer.
Yeah, and I think if you trade away Scherzer, that's when you trade pretty much anybody not named Juan Soto.
Yeah. Do you keep?
I'm not sure you hold on to anyone. I mean, you hold on to like Robles, I guess,
Turner?
too. That's an iffy one.
That's true.
Honestly, probably not.
Yeah.
Strasburg,
they could get a ton if they traded Trey Turner, man.
Yeah, they could. I think the move would probably be trade Max, trade Turner, keep Soto and Robles, call up K-Boom.
Yeah, I don't think that they're at a spot where they need they're still a solid team for sure. So I don't think they're not good, but they're at a spot where they can probably retool instead of rebuild, where they have a young talent that they don't have to blow it all up. So I think that they would keep Strasburg. They'd keep Turner, but Scherzer's he's a free agent after next year, so I don't know how much of a point there is when you're not competing next year. And in the end, he's Scherzer, and I mean, it seems like he's ageless, but he probably is on the way down.
Yeah,
he's like 38.
He's like 38.
So,
Evan says Josh Hader is a good point. Josh Hader has been on the
with the
block
current
for a long
status of the
time.
Brewers
Yeah,
as well.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they'd really trade anyone else they have. I mean, obviously you're not trading Yelich, you're not trading Hira. Maybe Lorenzo Cain. I feel like that's an iffy one too, and I don't know what Lorenzo Cain's market would look like either.
Yeah, I don't know either. I feel like that's a trade that would happen after a different trade had already happened. That would be a reaction to a market that would already have been set, not a first domino kind of thing.
He's also got a pretty big contract, so in the offseason when a lot of teams are not looking to spend, that would be a very interesting move.
Christian says Yu Darvish
yeah.
is his favorite for that one.
As much as I hate to say it, it's a good.
Mets sell. I just said Mets. If the Cubs sell, they should absolutely.
Yeah, if they sell, there's no point hanging on to Darvish.
So much back after his last couple of years.
There should be probably at least like minimum 4 trades happening if the Cubs are selling. Yeah, I don't know.
Peter says feels like Lindor, but I don't know. Indians might just want to let him walk for nothing.
Yeah,
that would be the Indians' mentality. Yeah, we were trying to. I feel like, like Rudy said, I feel like Lindor was kind of our all of our first answers. So.
All right. So the next question, we got it off on a little bit of a Nationals tangent. Well, we're gonna lean into it for just a sec. So our next question comes from Matthew, and that is, if the Nationals did acquire Chris Bryant, would that make them a World Series contender immediately next year?
No, it wouldn't.
I don't think that.
I would have to agree.
I know they won the World Series, but I don't think that 2019 team was insane, and I don't think that the only thing that they've lost was like you basically be saying is replacing Rendon with Bryant. But I just don't. I think that there's still a lot that team would need to.
Well, really, they would have to get the most out of Chris Bryant if that happened. That's step one. I mean, they didn't win the division in 2019. And that was.
I don't even think that team makes the playoffs. Yeah,
I would not disagree
even with
you.
The addition of Chris Bryant. I don't think that team,
Anthony.
Like that team is not. I'm going to be frank. I don't think they're very good right now. I really think that's a bad baseball. Not like the depths of like the bottom dwellers, but like that's like a 90 loss.
Yeah, definitely team. Bottom 2 in the NL East.
Like a good team, and I don't think Chris Bryant takes you from like 4th place in your division to the playoffs. I just don't think.
Well,
I don't know.
So we can look at it this way too. So 2019 was the best season of Rendon's career. Full season at least. He was very good this year also. But in 2019, Rendon was worth 7 wins above replacement on Fangraphs to the Nationals. So you've got to come up with, even if say the rest of the team was exactly the same, Chris Bryant would have to make it back to his MVP form, which he's now 3 years removed from. We'll say 2017 is the last season that he was truly in his MVP form. Chris Bryant would have to return to that form, and all else would have to be the same for the Nationals to get a wild card spot again.
Yeah, Matthew said, quote, Tigers fan. I'd love to see where I said that the Tigers were even remotely good. But anyway.
Yeah, Christian makes a good point, too. The Nationals had a great season out of Howie Kendrick, 140 WRC+, and that's absolutely gone.
And also, I don't think that, and like I said before, I don't, there's a lot of luck involved with winning the World Series, obviously. Once you get into the playoffs, then you have a chance because it's such a crapshoot. And I don't think that team itself was anywhere near the best team in baseball. I mean, at least on paper they weren't. So I think that you added luck with losing a lot of pieces, and I don't think that team. And also, a guy like Max Scherzer is now 2 years older. So, I don't think that is a World Series contender.
I mean, that's a true thing, and, they still have, Scherzer, Strasburg, Corbin is still a very solid 1-2-3 starting pitching, but a huge concern for that team all season was the bullpen. Well, now all of those bullpen guys are 2 years older, just like Strasburg. Their bullpen hasn't gotten any better, so if anything, that's probably more of a concern for the Nationals than it was before. So yeah, I'd have to agree with you. We've got some people saying that the National, like Peter says in chat, Nationals with Chris Bryant are better than the Phillies and Marlins. I'd probably agree as the Phillies stand, especially if they don't bring Ryan Ruhde back. Nationals, if they add Chris Bryant, would be a better team.
Yeah, but I don't think that they would be.
But still, that's not a playoff team.
Even with Bryant, I don't know if they're anywhere near. If they're near, but I don't think that they are on what I believe will be a very good Mets team. And
if you think that even if that's true, now you're saying that the NL East is so good that you're going to get 3 playoff teams from it, and like the rest of the National League, I just don't think allows that. I just don't.
I mean, you're
like being better than 2 teams in your division doesn't even, in my opinion, especially. I don't know with how young and upcoming some teams out in the National League are. I don't think that even remotely makes you like a lock for a playoffs team or anything like that.
I'd have to say, if I were to bet on one division to capture a wild card spot in 2021 for sure, it would be the NL West. There's no way that the Dodgers and Padres are not both playoff teams. And like you can quote me on that. I don't feel like it's that bold. There's almost zero chance that the Dodgers and Padres don't both make the playoffs. So if that's the case, you can assume the second place team in the NL East will probably be better than whoever's in contention for a wild card spot out of the NL Central, because the NL Central just won't hold up over a full season.
Well, the NL Central does blow,
it's pretty bad. So,
which is fair. I mean, that's totally fair. I mean, I guess realistically, at least for the immediate future, you're probably only contending with the Padres,
right,
for a wild card spot. So it's really, if you wanted to get like super specific, it would be just like, who do you think is better, the Padres or the Nationals with Chris Bryant?
That's not terribly close, if you ask me.
Plus, you also have in that division a very easy schedule compared to the other 2 divisions.
Yeah, that's true. The Padres get to play a lot of games off the Rockies and Giants and Diamondbacks, who are none of them are bona fide contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, Callie makes a point that I mentioned, or that I wanted to bring up also, which is they've also lost Sean Doolittle, who was one of the better relievers they had. He may sign back with them, who knows, but he is currently a free agent. So
they need a basically complete rehaul of that bullpen, in addition to Chris Bryant, and probably another starter as a 4, but that's less pressing. But again, you don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of question marks on that team. I would not go anywhere. They need a complete rehaul to be.
Well, and wasn't it also kind of a big deal when they won the World Series that Nationals team was pretty old? Outside of Juan Soto, their average age on that team was relatively high. So if you're going to say that you're going to take most of that team 2 years later and run it back, even in theory, that's not ideal. And they weren't, I mean, they were a very good team. They were not clearly the best team in baseball.
Nowhere near it.
So, yeah, there you go. Your answer is no. Which, Chris Bryant to the Nationals, it sounds like a good trade in theory, but in that sense, that would almost make the Nationals in a similar spot to where the Cubs are, where it's like you have Chris Bryant, you don't really have what it takes to get over the hump and go deep into the playoffs, and now you don't really know what to do with him.
Plus, you'd be giving up a big chunk of your farm system together.
Most likely, yeah.
That matchup just doesn't seem to work too well for the Mets.
Yeah. All right, so next question. Which team is most likely to go from today until opening day of 2021 without making a trade?
Most likely or most unlikely?
Most likely and most unlikely, which it's really like which team would you say is guaranteed to make a trade and which team would you
Sure.
say is most likely to go without one?
Um, hmm.
I think the Tigers may be most likely not to make a trade. I mean, there's not really a lot of pieces to sell off unless they give up. And I mean, they're not going to really trade Boyd or Fulmer right now. They don't have any value.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no one wants Michael Fulmer. He's blows. And yeah, Matt Boyd was also horrible. But yeah, I mean, I guess it like as far as like trading for someone that is going to be an everyday starter, like yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. We the last like 3 years in a row, we've made like a small kind of like trade for a utility slash platoon kind of person. So like if you're talking trade period, I mean maybe. It's hard just because like
I mean, I'd be surprised if anybody doesn't make a single trade this offseason.
right. No,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
No, and I was kind of thinking that while I was writing the question. I was like, I don't know if any team will really go without making any trades because there's always the smaller ones you forget about.
right.
Yeah,
But
trade
if you want to talk about like somebody that's going to start, 75% of your games, then that's probably fair.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I would say if there's two teams that like if you had to come up with two teams that are maybe in the most similar position right now, I would almost say the Tigers and Royals are very similar. Um
Yeah,
and
probably.
that certainly is helped by the fact that they're both in the AL Central where neither of them has a clear avenue to overtake any of the three teams above them.
Not anytime soon. Yeah. That's for sure.
And yeah, so I think it's interesting that Cop, you said the Tigers because I wrote my off-season outlook for the Royals today, and came to the point where I had to write like trade proposals, and I just didn't propose any because I was like, I don't think it's worth trying to come up with something for this team right now. Like I've been advocating forever that the Royals should trade Whit Merrifield. Clearly, they are not going to do that.
Please do. Get him out of the AL Central for the love of everything.
Like it's just yeah, I think both of those teams, it doesn't seem like there's guys on their major league roster that will generate enough interest to be worth selling off where they actually would do it. And they're also not to the point where they want to make big time acquisitions through trade yet.
Yeah, they're definitely not. They're not. They're not building up. They're not at a point where either of them want to build up through trades.
Yeah.
And that neither of them really have anything else to sell off. They're right at like that. They're right like if this is a rebuild, they're right like at the apex. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing left. There's no further down you can really go, but they're not quite turning up yet. For most likely,
or Cleveland. But if we're taking Lindor out of the equation,
I mean, honestly, I'm not even sure if Cleveland's like number one, just because like Lindor might be the most likely player to get traded, but if you're looking at a whole team, like all Cleveland has to do is not trade Lindor, and then they're not going to make any other moves. You know what I mean?
So we do have a good point in the chat, which is you've pretty much got to say the Mariners are the most likely because you can't say that Jerry DePoto is going to go an off season without making a trade.
That's facts.
And that same thing, they're not going to go an off season without making moves.
Let's see. What was I going to say? I had something I had in mind. I mean, and it was just like I've mentioned already. It sounds like the Cubs definitely have some roster turnover imminent. So I think if you had to pick a team that was going to make a trade, it seems like there's no way they're just going to run it back without something going on the major league level.
Yeah, Matthew brings up a good point. Honestly, the Nationals, just going back to them, they might be one of the most likely.
True.
I mean,
Yeah.
just no matter what direction they decide, whether they decide to go into rebuild or trade to add pieces to make a run again, either way, I think it's pretty unlikely that they stand pat and just do nothing.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Evans asked this question like 90 times. We should probably give it the attention it deserves.
Yeah, I'm typing it up now. Um, you know what team I always have trouble evaluating, and I just like for some reason I think I just don't think about them frequently enough, don't have a good enough feel for their roster or like what they're trying to do or where they're at, is the Blue Jays. I just have such a hard time like conceptualizing what the Blue Jays are going to do.
I think the Blue Jays are in that spot where I think that they are on the verge of. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a World Series contender next year, but I think they're on the verge of that. Becoming buyers in the offseason for sure. And I think that they're a team. They have a good young core. The U trade has worked out. I mean, signing worked out. So I think that they'll definitely be in the market for a pitcher, I think.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I just, for some reason, they're like right in the middle where they're like a good enough team that they don't stick out to me as like rebuilding because they've pretty much done that. But they're also like, not winning the AL East most likely.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good assumption or a pretty good prediction.
So anyway, we can jump to Evan's question, which is, will Dodgers Padres be baseball's biggest rivalry in 2021?
In the 2020s.
Oh, in the 2020s.
Hey, Dad.
Okay. Sorry, I misread it.
What was your
2020s, the entire decade.
Yeah, so there you go.
I think that probably be the best one for sure.
I think, yeah.
I mean, I don't really know. Like, I don't know. Like, sure, I got like
part of it.
I mean, like, is it gonna be bigger than
Red Sox, Yankees, like Cubs, Cardinals, or even Dodgers, Giants? Like the Dodgers are already part of another rivalry that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be the bitterest rivalry between fans, but in terms of two divisional rivals who would be consistently the best in their divisions. I mean, the two divisional rivals who will be consistently fighting for that number one spot in the division, I absolutely think. I mean, as of right now, anything can happen. I think that the Red Sox are definitely a few years away from contending. Yankees, Rays maybe, but the Rays don't like to spend money, so they may not be able to stay with the Yanks. And I mean, the Padres have a great young core, and then you have the Dodgers who like to spend money. So, I mean, at least for the of the 2020s. I think so, but then when the Padres have to pay their players, we'll see if they.
But I also don't think like I agree with Peter when he said like I don't really think either of the next 2 years that's going to be a big rivalry
the
either.
Dodgers are going to be better.
I think it might be for like I don't know, like 2023 to 2025.
Yeah.
If you want to if you want to get super specific, and then like
that's my thing about these decade questions is like if you think back to the last decade, it's literally impossible to know what teams will be good in 2029. We just have no way of knowing.
No, yeah.
Right.
Like it.
I think Braves would be a pretty good rivalry over the next couple
I was going to
years.
say, that was going to be my other thought. I think the Braves should be in a conversation of best rivalry. Either Braves-Mets, if we're going strictly division rivalry, or the NLCS we just saw. I think the Dodgers and the Braves have a pretty good chance to meet in the playoffs fairly regularly for the next 4 years at least. I mean, the Braves have Acuna and Albies both under contract for a long time. Soroka and Fried still have a lot of team control left. They, for the next 3-4 years, have a very, very good framework to continue to try and build around.
Yeah, I think the Braves are going to be. I mean, it's also like obviously we don't know like who they're going to be playing against every year in the postseason or whatever, but I think the Braves will be a staple in the playoffs for quite some time, given their core.
So yeah,
Tigers.
I mean,
White Sox.
I think bottom line, a lot of people were impressed with the Padres this year, and simultaneously, it's going to take more for people to be sold on this Padres team.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where the Padres will have to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series for the rivalry to start. Like, it's not one yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it becomes one until the Padres prove that they can beat the Dodgers in a playoff series, and I just don't see that happening anytime really soon. I just think the Dodgers are on a whole nother level than everybody else. So, like, maybe down the road, like you're talking a whole decade, so, like, maybe in the middle of the 20s, sure, that's absolutely a possibility.
Yeah.
But as far as right now or anytime soon, probably not, just because it outside of Ohio State and Michigan, like, you can't have a rivalry if it's like one team just wins all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, totally fair. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is who will be the first to prove out of the National League that they can overcome the Dodgers.
right. And that, honestly, that like you said, like, the Braves is honestly a great poll, because there's nothing that says the Braves aren't more competitive. I think the Braves are absolutely more competitive than the Padres immediately, and there's nothing that says that they don't maintain that status in the coming years either.
Peter asks, is Rays Yankees not even in the conversation? I think it is in the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. I mean, I'm never going to count out the Rays for anything. It's just hard when you have a team that consistently has like a $50 million budget, like,
Yeah.
you know,
like,
for a whole decade.
If they decide that they want to keep this core around, then yes. But and I will never count out their amazing management, but like, the Yankees will spend money and the Yankees will keep their core around. Right. I don't know if the Rays seem to be kind of in that cycle of, you know, they'll compete a couple of years, take a couple of years off, and go back in. Like, save some money for 2 years, then go back in it. So
right, yeah. However they do it.
Definitely be in the conversation. But yeah, again, I just don't. It's about if they decide that they actually want to spend money. Because if they do, then they will. But yeah, I think Yankees Astros was, but I think the Astros are probably on their way.
I think that was one. I think that absolutely for us. I mean, the cheating thing also kind of ruined it. But yeah,
pretty quickly. I think also a lot of people outside of Yankees Astros got tired of it almost. You know, especially with the cheating thing, people didn't love hearing about the Astros, and so it was kind of like, oh yeah, and like, you know, Yankees are already not the most popular team, so it was like, oh, Yankees and Astros.
Yeah, the thing that makes rivalries great is when, like, it divides is the word, fandom, right? Like, you have people that aren't fans of either team all gravitate to a side. That's what makes a rivalry, and what makes it great. And I think right when the cheating thing happened,
nobody was on the Astros
you know, like,
side,
it's not a rivalry anymore because nobody's rooting for the Astros to beat the Yankees this time. You know what I mean? Like,
Evan says Indians versus Indians management.
That's fair. Quinn also says the Dodgers might have a chance at the playoffs next year, guys.
It's possible. We'll be on the lookout. We'll keep you updated if that changes.
Like you said, it was a one-sided rivalry also. I mean, the Yankees, we have quite literally lost to the Astros every time we play them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the last two have both been great series. So
I feel like the Yankees is also kind of an exception where they're like one of the only teams that doesn't really, like, quote unquote need to win because it's the Yankees. I don't know. Maybe that's just me and being like a
Rob Manfred versus
someone who the Yankees have never beaten the playoffs ever. Maybe that's just me, but, like, I just feel like they don't really need it.
So Matthew says Rob Manfred versus baseball, which is possibly, maybe if you're stretching it, a segue into my next question. And by the way, be sure to keep questions coming in the chat. We got another half hour, and we'd love to answer whatever you got for us.
Absolutely.
So, as I mentioned earlier, since we last, went live, did this, one of the largest pieces of news was that Theo Epstein stepped down from his role as Cubs president of baseball operations a year before the expiration of his contract. So Jed Hoyer was promoted to the position and now has gotten a contract extension through 2025. So my next question is, what will Theo Epstein's next job in baseball be?
General manager of the Detroit Tigers next. Thanks for playing.
Well,
I think he goes.
Say it again, Cobb.
I think he ends up with the
You
Mets.
think he goes to the Mets? So the interesting thing, and this is why I mentioned it when Matthew mentioned Rob Manfred, is I've heard people suggesting that Epstein should become baseball's next commissioner.
I love Theo Epstein. I think he'd be an amazing commissioner, but I really don't see. I think we all hate Rob Manfred.
Yeah, I don't think the owners hate Rob Manfred enough for that to happen.
So it's not like a democracy. Like, we don't choose who the commissioner is. The owners do. He works for the owners, and they're making a lot of money. Obviously, right now they're not making a lot of money because of COVID, but in general, baseball has been making money for years, and it's still going up. So he's doing his job the way that they are happy with it, and all these weird changes that for some reason he's obsessed with, they're just like, okay, we don't really care. We're still making money. So it's not like people are going to boycott baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't see Manfred losing his job anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's insurmountably more likely that he just GMs somewhere else.
Which would be,
I mean, the Mets is obviously.
Yeah, and it seems like kind of his style, where it wouldn't be like. I think Manfred is under contract through 2024, if I'm correct. It's kind of Epstein's style. I know in the Tom Verducci wrote a book about the 2016 Cubs, and in that book he talked about how Epstein kind of follows this philosophy that the relationship between any kind of leader and an organization grows stale after about 10 years. And so that was kind of the length of his time in Boston. He spent 9 years then with the Cubs, and definitely towards the end of his time in Boston, I mean, Epstein, before he left, he made the Carl Crawford signing, the Adrian Gonzalez trade, moves that ultimately he says were sort of regrettable. And so it kind of makes sense that that's the, what he considers to be an ideal tenure length. But if he were to take on a new baseball operations role, especially if he stays true to his word that he's not looking for a new job immediately, and he might wait a year, it doesn't seem like he would then be willing to leave that kind of position to take over as commissioner as soon as 2024.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, he like Manfred's, you said, Manfred's not like an old man either.
Yeah. So, something nice to dream on, perhaps, but not necessarily the reality. And I think him going to the Mets is also, it makes sense in light of, I believe word also broke today or recently that Sandy Alderson was saying the Mets aren't going to hire a president of baseball operations right now.
Yes, that did happen today. Yep.
And Sandy's going to be more involved in that stuff himself. And if that's the case, and the Mets are looking next year for a president of baseball operations, and Epstein is looking for a job as the president of baseball operations somewhere, that seems very likely to happen.
It has
too bad the Tigers are going to hire him first.
If you look at the Mets, it keeps with that, taking over just historically horrible franchises and turning them around. Which he obviously got Boston. He ended a drought in Boston, ended one in Chicago. Mets aren't on a big drought. I mean, they won in '86. It's still like the Mets, like they're a laughing stock really. It'd be like winning with. It would be like going to the Knicks and winning. Like, it's like that kind of turnaround, and I think the Mets are going to be a great team for a long time, honestly. But we shall see.
Yeah, no, and I think that one's interesting too, because at least comparing the Mets that Epstein would be taking over even next offseason, comparing them to the Cubs that Epstein got in 2011, they're very, very different teams, even just on a basic level of how good they are. I mean, the 2011 Cubs, not at all good, and these Mets, with better luck, probably could have been a playoff team. I don't think that's a huge stretch.
Yeah.
Especially in this season.
Yeah, I don't think that. Well, this year I think that the expanded playoffs obviously played to their strength, but at the same time, their pitching was genuinely atrocious. Like, I mean, after
It
the
was
ground
very bad. It was very bad.
forward, it was Nats, Porcello, Waka.
That's a Cy Young winner you're talking about, by the way.
Porcello. But I think that I mean, I mean, with how good their offense was last year, and it was a legit offense. If they can add maybe a real Muto, and they're bringing back, which next year is going to be a really good rotation. Maybe they get another piece there. I mean, that could be a good team. I mean, the bullpen seems to be constructed well. It just so happens that it seems like every good reliever, whoever goes to the Mets, just sucks. But
reasonable.
If they can get away from the Mets' luck, then I think that they're the best team in the division, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So our next question comes from Evan in the chat, which is, where will the kind of big free agent trio of JT Realmuto, George Springer, and Trevor Bauer sign? Obviously, they're not signing anywhere altogether, but yeah.
That's where you're wrong.
They're all going to sign with the Tigers, Scott says.
Now you're starting to see the vision. Yeah, I agree with Matthew, which are words I never thought I'd say.
At least one with the Mets, yep.
There's no way one of the three of them doesn't go to the Mets. I think that Real Muto, I think, is one of the very few free agents that I could see getting his value in AAV and years. I think a lot of people are either going to get underpaid or only sign 1-year deals so that they can go to next year's market, which will be way better, just because this year was such a disaster. So Real Muto, I could see really... I don't know. I can see Real Muto going a lot of places, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I think pretty much everybody... Catcher is just such a valuable position when you have that good of a bat at catcher. So he could really go anywhere. And then I think, Bauer is also weird. Like, he's a weirdo. And, like, he could legitimately go anywhere, especially if he's this, like stern about the, 1-year contract thing. Like, he could legitimately go play for, the freaking Royals, bro. Like, he could literally go anywhere. So... I don't know. I guess that was just my over-explained way of saying I have no idea. But I think one of them going to the Mets is definitely a very good. If I were a betting man, that would be a very reasonable bet
Scott,
to make.
Now you're seeing the vision.
I would honestly argue that I think 2 of them go to the Mets.
2 of them.
I think that.
Wow.
I think that the Mets have. At least this is what I got from Steve Cohen's introductory press conference that Alderson was not a part of. So, and I don't think Steve Cohen's going to be an overbearing owner. I think he's just going to give him as much money as he wants. But they don't seem to want to ship off too many prospects. So I think that they're going to improve through free agency more so than trade. Yeah. And I think that, Bauer is – honestly, Bauer on a short-term deal is just is a team's dream. That you can give a guy 1 year and then just put a blank check in front of him. And I think that's exactly what the Mets will do. And I think that they will outbid anybody for Bauer, which will then give them one of the best rotations in baseball. And I think that Real Muto, I think that Real Muto is a great fit with the Mets too, in that, they've needed a catcher for a long time. He's a franchise catcher. They are willing to overpay. And I think that that's just a very good fit. And you also make the Phillies worse. So I think that Realmuto and Bauer both go to the Mets. I don't think Springer ends up there just because, I mean, obviously he's a great player, would be a good fit, but their outfield is pretty good.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine one team cleaning up the top of free agency like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Their catching is atrocious.
Yeah.
That would be a good fit, but Springer, I'm really not sure about where Springer ends up. He could really go to a lot of different places. I don't think he ends up back in Houston because I think that they'll probably choose Bregman and.
Well, so the interesting thing about Springer potentially going back to Houston is if he leaves, they have almost nobody to play center field. So I think that is a force that might drive them to pursue him more strongly, especially if they think that their window is not closed yet, which is also an interesting and entirely other discussion, whether the Astros window is closing or closed. But yeah, no, I could see Springer going back to Houston.
He just wants to reunite with Hinch, bro. It's over.
Well, beyond that, there's not many teams in baseball that couldn't use a very, very good center fielder.
Yes, it is incredibly true. It's just this offseason is so weird. Like a normal offseason, I give you like the normal answers of like borderline competitive teams that have money and need a center fielder, but like he could go sign. Like Diego said the other day, like he could go sign a 1-year deal in Arizona, and I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this offseason is just going to be so weird.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah, and maybe like slightly related. You guys, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an article on MLB.com maybe a week and a half ago suggesting that the top free agent from this class is actually not any of those three guys, but DJ LeMahieu.
That's ridiculous. But sure.
Yeah, I love LeMahieu. I'm biased. I'm Yankee fan. I love him, but he just doesn't have. Well, I would rather the Yankees bring him back than get Realmuto, just because I don't want to give a catcher who's 30 what he's going to get.
Sure.
Springer, I think Springer's the best free agent in this class, and I love LeMahieu, but he's older. I think his stuff will last, but I don't think I don't think his power this year was a fluke, because I think that but it's a fluke if he goes anywhere besides back to the Yankees, because he's learned how to take advantage.
Or back to Colorado.
Yeah, sure.
That power is not lasting. He's not a power hitter. He's learned how to take advantage of going the other way and poking it 315 feet.
Yeah.
But
215. Yeah.
Hey, Quinn's got a good point. He peaked with the Cubs. Truly, LeMahieu did. That was one of the first. We just talked about Epstein. One of the first moves that Epstein made was trading away DJ LeMahieu.
Honestly, what'd you guys get for him? I don't.
Stewart. Someone Stewart. Boom sauce on the live tab. On live air.
Yeah.
The answer to what did we get for him is nothing significant.
Yeah, so they're not a great.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, Mayhew's years in New York, he obviously had the batting title year in Colorado, but his years in New York have been pretty significantly his best years of his career. I mean, he found something new in New York, and I think it had directly to do with the short porch. And also, I mean, he's a great contact hitter. He's able to put the bat on the ball, and the Yankee Stadium's a great place for a righty who goes the other way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that, I don't think he's going to get an insane amount of money. I don't think he's the top free agent in the class. I think there'll be a lot of interest in him, but there seems to be mutual interest between the Yankees and I saw Jim Bowden said that he's their top priority, and he wants to be back in New York. So I'd be shocked if the Yankees don't bring him back. But
me too, honestly. Which, for whatever's that worth, I would be shocked if he wasn't in pinstripes next year. I really would.
The biggest question is if they bring him back, what ends up with their shortstop position? Because Torres cannot play shortstop. I mean, he's a bad shortstop. He doesn't have the arm or the range to play there.
Put
Move
Andujar at
LeMahieu to
shortstop.
first.
Yes, sir.
That's a great idea. Miguel Andujar, you move him to short.
So I think there's a couple of scenarios. I mean, the first scenario is they stick with Glaber at short, which I don't think they should do, but maybe they give him one more year and then they try to sign someone in the big free agent class. The second one is they trade for either Story or Lindor, and then I don't know what they do with. And that also goes into the third one, where if they get a new shortstop or they sign Simmons, what they do with one of Gio, Urshela, Luke Voigt, and Glaber, because then there would absolutely be an odd man out. So I'm very interested to see what they do this offseason. There's like a million different ways that this could go, or three. But, yeah.
Sure. All right, my next question is not at all related, and also probably like totally a screwball. So I won't be surprised if this one's pretty tough because I'm struggling to come up with an answer, and I've been thinking about it for about 10 minutes. Who will be Major League Baseball's best reliever over the course of the 2020s?
Gregory Soto. Nah.
Because
Softball.
Because 2000s, Mariano Rivera. 2010s, probably Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or Chapman.
Or Chapman.
Or maybe Aroldis Chapman. So, yeah. So the decade to come, Peter is very convinced it'll be Emmanuel Clace.
Probably.
I want to see him get on the field first.
Yikes.
I'm not throw a name out just because, I mean, all these decade questions are so hard to predict because so the best reliever of the decade's not even up. But if I had to throw one out, I'd probably say Hader just because I think he's the safest pick. He's one of the best relievers in baseball right now, and he's young.
It's weird to think that Hader is younger than Devin Williams.
It is weird to think that.
Because, I mean, Hader
is still super young.
He can be down at age 36, and that's what we're talking about. He's 26 right now. So, and these questions are always so tough, especially with relievers. They are impossible.
It's got to be – I got to go with Burl Carraway, personally.
Wrong.
Gregory
If you don't say Gregory Soto, you're just not correct.
Peter makes an excellent point that's already getting a lot of support in the chat, which is they very likely haven't been drafted yet. And also, it could be a guy who is currently a struggling starting pitcher. That is like not on anyone's radar. I mean,
that is always a popular avenue.
I'll take the opportunity. I'll take any opportunity I can get to bring up Wade Davis.
Wade.
Peter's answer is Peter Kayat.
You know what? I support
I buy
that
it.
answer.
Wait. Are we just totally forgetting about Rafael Dolis?
Hey, yo. John Principe booed Rafael Dolis, by the way. I want that on record for everyone to hear so we can play this back at any time. John Principe of Canada booed Rafael Dolis.
Boo Canada.
Who, by the way, literally plays for the Blue Jays.
That's a shame on Canada.
I mean, that's booing Rafael Dolis in of itself is anti-Canadian. So.
Well, it's also just anti
Earth
life, anti-existence.
Yeah.
How can you just
boo Rafael? You just
boo
can't.
Dolis.
I'm disgusted thinking about it.
I just wanted that to be on the record so that everybody.
No, you know what? Quinn is actually correct. The answer is MVP candidate Ryan Tepera.
That's true. MVP candidate. Hard to go wrong with an MVP reliever. Did they said that was a misclick? Right?
Yeah, it was a misclick. It was a drop-down menu. He meant to vote for Trey Turner, and just missed it. So maybe a better question then is which team will develop or have MLB's best reliever in the 2020s?
The Detroit Tigers, because they have Gregory Soto.
Next.
I mean, if we're just talking about developing relievers, probably Tampa, if I had to guess,
Sure.
because they
Yeah, it's
seem.
a safe bet.
I mean, I don't know if they'll have the best reliever of the decade, but they'll probably just come up with 10 different guys who have 1 year of dominance, then just like fall off when they go anywhere else. Like, I mean, Tampa Bay is just such an insane.
Nick
pitching.
Anderson's already pretty old, right? Like, I think he's like 30.
I would-
Yeah, he's 30.
Honestly,
Wow.
I would not be shocked if Nick Anderson is just not that good next year. Like, I mean, he was dominant this year, but he wasn't. He fell off a little in the playoffs, which obviously is a small sample size. But he also hasn't been good in his entire career leading up to it. Like, there's in Tampa. I mean,
Man.
we'll
Yeah,
see
but
what.
who says they just don't go find another random 26-year-old
And make him
tall white dude from North Dakota, and he turns into the reliever of the year? Like,
Hits 110.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. On the easy.
Nick Anderson was drafted in 2012. He was the 995th overall pick.
Wow.
So,
Quinn says Gratterall will be the best reliever of the 2020s, and the Red Sox team doctor will cry himself to sleep.
That one's got to sting.
Yeah,
That one's got to sting a little bit.
traded for
that's
Mookie
interesting.
Betts
We've got a lot of dissent here on which team will develop the best reliever. Evan says the Orioles. Quinn says safe money's on the Dodgers. I mean, I think the Indians
Dodgers
at least have
is
to be
always a
thrown
safe
into the
bet.
discussion, given how they've just continually thrown out quality pitching this year, and especially. But for years, the Indians have thrown out quality pitching.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is very true. I mean, the answer is still Gregory Soto,
know,
but
and-
we can keep playing this game.
Like, it feels like a question that's somewhat difficult to assess, but at the same time, it probably isn't that complicated, you know? Like Craig Kimbrell was pretty obviously going to be very good for a very long time. I still don't think that you're going to get anyone that really comes out of nowhere and is good enough for long enough that they enter the best reliever of the 2020s discussion. You know, like I brought up Wade Davis. Wade Davis was really good for 3 years, and then he was really bad. Or maybe 4 years. Zach Britton posted the lowest ERA for a reliever in a full season in 2016 and wasn't quite the same after that. Adam Ottavino had super nasty stuff in Colorado, but that never translated to being the best or the most dominant reliever.
Yeah, I agree there because you really
Honestly, for best of the decade, Britain's got to be up there, right?
I don't know. I'm not
His
familiar
injuries.
enough with what he did outside of 2016.
Well, I mean, in New York, he's been,
since he's been very good. That's at least
Yeah.
half a decade.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I think that I wouldn't put him on the same level as Kimbrel for at least the first 7 years
Yeah,
or so of the
Kimbrel.
decade.
Yeah, no, I think
Or-
Kimbrel's the slam dunk for
Or Chapman.
the decade. Yeah, Chapman's up.
But
there.
like, no, I agree with that. That when you're talking about the best of a decade, there are some special talents that aren't just like fluke years. Where like I don't think Nick Anderson is like I think Josh Hader is a special talent where he could be this dominant for the next decade. But I mean, yeah, I mean it's also tough because I genuinely think that the best reliever of this decade may have never played an MLB game.
Yeah.
Because it's so tough to predict relievers, and like I mean there could be an already established guy, but there also could be a guy who comes up as a starter next year, throws 100, sucks as a starter, put him in the bullpen, and he's the best reliever in baseball for the next 10 years. So yeah, I mean these decade questions.
Yeah,
are
no, that is very difficult. Anyway, yeah, so that leaves us with one more question, which I'm a fool and didn't type out in advance. And we got like 2 minutes here, so this is just going to be a quick
speed round.
Much simpler. You got to hit me with your favorite ballpark meal.
Ballpark meal? Okay. I always go. Before I go to my seat, it's 2 hot dogs and a large pre the age of 21 lemonade, post 21 beer. Sit down to your seat. Then in the 7th inning stretch exactly, every time for my entire life, it's an ice cream sandwich back in the seat, and that's it.
Can't go wrong with the ice cream Sammy. What's on the hot dogs, though?
It has quite
important detail.
Well, it is generally just mustard. Now, I am not a big anti-ketchup person. I like ketchup. That being said, at a ballpark, it just feels like a sanctuary, and it just kind of makes me feel dirty if I just put ketchup on there. So,
I don't have the routine that Scott has, but I usually go with chicken fingers and fries. Just a meal that kind of, because hot dogs don't really last.
So Cop's a 5-year-old, Rudy.
Fingers are timeless. I will die on that hill.
Yeah, at a Red Robin, not at a baseball, not at Yankee Stadium. What are you doing?
There's a Yankee Stadium has a drink this big, and it's soda, and then it's surrounded by chicken fingers and fries.
You drink your chicken fingers?
I'll cave on that one. That's gotta sound cheap, I guess.
Yeah, I gotta go with hot dogs too. I mean, it's too classic, I think. I don't know if I have like a staple of a drink or anything else. Depending on the day, it might be a brat too. That's also in play for sure. But either way, it's mustard and onions. That's it. Yeah.
Respect. I respect that. And obviously, if you were to go to Progressive Field, you'd have to get Stadium Mustard.
Yeah, I can't. Let's see. Yeah, I can't say that I'm like dying to get a Chicago dog, especially from a ballpark. You know, like that's kind of a thing I feel like is reserved for like a place that's what they do is hot dogs. But yeah, I mean, you just can't go wrong with some hot dogs at the ball game. Last game, not the last game I went to, but one of the games I went to last season was a dollar hot dog game. Those are heat. Then that's when you
those are heat. Peter, I have like 8
mustard.
tubs of Stadium Mustard. So I went to Jacobs Field when it was still Jacobs Field back when I was in. It was like one of Verlander's first starts in his career. It was 2006, so he was already half a season into his career. But I was probably in like 3rd or 4th grade, and we loved the mustard. We literally my dad and I literally bought like bottles of Stadium Mustard and brought it home with us.
Evan is insistent on closing us out with a terrible take that Chicago hot dogs are not good.
It's a reasonably hot take, I would say. It's a hot take. That's for sure.
I could. I'm not always down with the sport peppers, but that take, just not there. So anyway, we could we might be sitting here debating condiments all night, but we can spare that. But yeah, we appreciate you all joining us. Keeping things lively, giving us good questions to talk about. Real quick, want to throw up our Fanatics link. So if you are doing any holiday shopping at Fanatics, remember to use our link, and that helps us out. Gives us a small portion of the money and helps us keep our website running. Ooh. And yeah, we really appreciate it. We appreciate your support as always. And we'll be back with you next week. Hope everyone, all you Americans out there, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, we look forward to an off season that we hope is is entertaining. We can only hope.
Yes, we can only hope. And as moves get made, the questions will become easier and easier too. So it'll be fun.
Before the Chicago food slander gets too out of hand.
Stadium mustard goated.
So yeah, thank you. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. We'll see you back here next week. Have a great week, everyone.